People, how are we? I hope all are well. I am here once again. Here's number two, webinar number two, and this one is going to be based around training. So, obviously, the first one was more centered around structure in a general sense. So, the theme of it, if for those that may not have watched it, was that people don't fail because of a lack of effort, it's because of a lack of structure. And then, structure is such an overarching theme from nutrition to lifestyle to routine to your training. So that was kind of like probably what I felt to be like the best way to start, like just a general kind of sense. And then obviously, like it will in this one and all of them, there were some takeaway points that you guys could have implemented and actioned instantly. And I kind of hope some of you kind of took some of them. I think the main one was like the 4 variables to kind of work on this week. And it was like 3 square meals, have a set sleep time, like just basics. Because that's what works, and you'll kind of see an overarching theme in all of these webinars where, like, obviously depending on your level or where you're at, a lot of it is basics. Like, it's a lot of it is the shit we know already. And again, I kind of covered that in the last one where, like, that's where coaching is a thing. Anyone can go and, like, there's more information out there readily available than ever before. So, like, it's not going to be hard. Like, if you have a ChatGPT subscription or a free one, like, you could go and get this shit wrote out for you, and you could have it like insane detail, like with not a step missed. But are you going to do that? Like, you're probably not. And then that's where kind of coach comes in, that accountability of someone that's going to push you to, or are going to kind of hold you to a standard. But at the end of the day, that's kind of what we need. Like, sometimes it suits people more for someone to go, this is what it is. It's more the confirmation of what they're doing as opposed to what to actually do that kind of catches people. But I won't waffle too much about the last one because there's going to be plenty of waffle in this one. So how elite physiques are actually built. So this is going to be focused and centered around training at the most part. Something I covered in the last one as well was that nutrition is going to be the forefront of your kind of priority. But when you get to a place where, maybe 3 or 4 weeks where you have like steady consistency within your nutrition, what becomes the most paramount piece of what you're doing then is the training. And then nutrition kind of falls in as something that just kind of happens in the background, or at least that's kind of what you're aiming for. Like, you're trying to look for that space where, like, food isn't a thought anymore. Like, it's just it's a kind of a reflex where these are my times, these are my meals, and this is just what I'm doing. You've built it into routine, and now it's into more kind of a hyper fixation on the training end of things. So that is what we're going to cover today. I'm going to try and keep this a little bit tighter than the last one because I got a little bit ahead of myself with the waffle. So you'll notice there's less pictures as well, less distraction. So we'll keep it straightforward. So why this matters. So most people are training hard, but they're not training effectively. Like, this is the male inclination, like I covered in the last one, and I cover in my content in general. No structure, especially guys when they go in. Let's fix that shit first real quick. Sorry, I pause this. Sorry, that kept happening in the last one as well. I've check-in day, so I'm going to be getting a lot of that. So the male inclinations to go in and lift heavy shit and, be scatterbrain and no real kind of rhyme nor reason to what they're doing or why they're doing it. Like, we all go to the gym and we have a goal in mind, but, like in anything, like, if you have a goal, your best idea is to know where you plan on landing and then reverse engineering it back from that. And the only way, and what that's going to do, and, is going to build you a plan or a guide or a step-by-step blueprint to get there. And like, that's training. Like, if you're going in and you don't know what you're training, or you don't know what exercises you're doing, or if you don't have, a set structure in place to follow, you're going to get lost, and you're also not going to be able to manage what you're doing, nor know whether it's of any use. And these are like the obvious ones, like too many exercises, like just picking things willy-nilly. Holding an exercise for 2 to 3 weeks isn't going to cut it. You're looking at 2 to 3 months, and even that's probably not going to cut it. The wrong intent. So, I've no form, I've no real cadence to what I'm doing. I'm just like lifting weight. I'm just going A to B. And those two things kind of build out a lack of progression, or no way of knowing if there's any progression in the plan. And copying influencers is another one. Always seeing this exercise today, I'm going to do that instead of, you get that with guys where I'm going to do a 1-arm pec fly instead of a chest press. You're like, you're so far removed from where that should even be placed. Like, if you're going to try shit, like, try shit, and I'm all for that. But do it at the end. Like, don't do it at a place where you're fresh, or that energy could be used for something that's actually going to be conducive to what you're trying to do or build. And this is my training method. Like the 3 pillars of what I do is like stimulus. So it's never about load. It is all about execution. So can I feel the muscle that I'm training? That is the first one. Do I feel like the reps are quality? Like, is my form in good place? Like, am I keeping things where they should be? Am I mitigating injury to every degree possible? The structure, do I know what I'm doing? Like, I don't want to go in and train chest because I want a big chest. I look at my chest and go, I have a really weak upper pec. And I have really bad shoulders, so I know I have to activate first and get the most out of the recruitment and the mitigation of injury from my pecs as possible when I go in first. So I'll always start with a pec fly, or some type of isolation movement, and then I'm going to move into an incline where it's going to prioritize the part of my chest that I find to be the weakest, and then from that point on, it's everything else that falls under that. So not just the upper pec, now the full pec, and depth of pec and stretch, and that's where there is a structure in place as to what I'm doing. And then every week I'm trying to beat 1 or 2 of those things. So it's not always about load. Like if I'm not beating the weight and I'm not beating the reps, I may beat the quality of those reps. I may beat the fact that I was able to pause or slow down or be a little bit more kind of controlled in what I was doing. And I'll take that as a progression. Not the fact that, oh, fuck, I did 25 kilo dumbbells last week and I did 25 kilo dumbbells this week. I'm shit. The following week I could do 22 and a half. That weight has come down, but if those reps feel better, I'm taking that as progression and I'm happy with that. And, we'll cover that as well, but that'll be down to your login as well. So then just to break these 3 pillars down, let's move my big fat head out of the way so you can see properly. So muscle only grows from these things, right? And one thing that you'll notice here is that weight isn't written down. Because it's so not the fucking focus point. Like if you are getting fucked up about the numbers on the bar, you are looking over here and you should be looking over there. So completely different direction. So it always grows from tension, mechanical tension. So that's a form setup thing. And it's also a cadence thing, like a tempo thing. Like, are you moving too fast? You're not going to be able to feel shit. As well as time under tension. If I get a 100 kilo bar for a bench press and I do 10 fucking reps like this, probably going to last 20 seconds. Whereas if I take down for 3 and pause for 1 and up for 3 and pause for 1, it's going to take me triple the length of time, which is triple the length of time that I have stimulus on the muscle. So you have to look at that as well. Stability. This is a thing I just actually posted about leg pressing. If you're not stable in a movement, you're more likely to be injured. You're less likely to have that exercise standardized. So, if 1 week I get into a leg press and I'm fucking pressing it like it's running out of fashion, and then the next week I'm super controlled, I'm super locked in, that deviance every week, or even if it's every other week, any week that it's a deviance from what the kind of the standard is in that movement is a wasted week. So I don't know, because if I get in and I rush something, but I've been super controlled for the last 4 weeks, what does that rush set tell me? That I'm an asshole, that I shouldn't have rushed it. I should have kept it standardized. Your proximity to failure is another one. Like, how close to failure are you getting? And I mean actual failure, like, someone's picking a bar up off your chest or pulling you out of the bottom of a hack squat, or just nearly about, like, with a little fingertips assistance. This is why spotters are important and not be dickheads. Like, if they take the weight off you, that's fucking wasted. It's moving into that and kind of pushing yourself as close to the edge as you can, so that because you'll feel it. Like, you won't forget those sets. Like, if anyone's ever been stuck at the bottom of a squat, you'll never forget that moment. And you don't have to fucking write that shit down. Like, that's going to come back to you next time you're squatting. And then just consistency and intent. So just having that thing where it's a thing every week. Your body shows up for that every week. Your body's able to adapt and kind of is expecting of what's coming. But there's intent without chaos. So it's not just a thing that you're going in and just fucking off the wall going, I'll do legs today, and we'll do lunges instead of squats. Like, where the fuck is that going to bring you? Like, who knows? And this thing, technique is a skill. So this has come up on podcasts before. I don't know if anybody watches the Fuad Abiyad podcast, the Real Bodybuilding podcast, but this is a thing of, like, the technique of lifting weights is a skill that is perfected over time. For bodybuilding, it doesn't get viewed as so much. You look at, like, ollie lifting or stuff like that, it gets a little bit more, because they are technically more technical movements. Although we do have, the likes of a squat or an RDL, like, these type of movements have a little bit more to them. But not just that in general. Like, even with a barbell curl, like, the technique for that as a skill. Like, where are you positioning your elbows? How are you sitting with your shoulders? Like, how are you making sure you're getting the most out of the stretch? How are you making sure that you're stable within the movement? Like, these are all things that you just develop over time, where it's a checklist. So if I go in to do an exercise of any description, I already have, like, and I'll always give this to my PT clients as well. Like, always go from the floor up. So where's my foot stance? Are my knees soft? Where do my hips have to be? Is my core engaged? Which doesn't really matter, but you still want to kind of keep a postural kind of thing. Are my shoulder blades back? Is my chest up? Is my chin down? My head back? And then I'm kind of into that move and I'm set. Now I know what to move. Doing curls, it's only the lower arm is moving. I'm keeping all of that in line. So there's just a skill you develop over time. And that's why there's merit in going and getting like training or coaching from someone who is physically there in front of you, or at least someone that can do kind of form analysis on your training so that you know you're getting the most out of it. Because it's not just a simple thing of moving A to B and kind of, this is what we're talking about here, like the stability strength rule. If you're unstable, you won't create force. And if you're like in a leg press example, like I posted yesterday, one of the big ones is grab the handles and pull yourself down. Now, don't fucking reef yourself down to the floor, but a little bit of pressure so your bum stays on the seat. Because usually what's going to happen to people is they start to lower the leg press, their knees get closer to their chest, their bum is going to lift, and it's super exposing of your lower back. And if you have any lower back issues, you're going to have more very, very soon. So that's kind of, and besides all of that mitigating an injury, if I pull myself down and I'm able to brace into my midsection, I'm going to be stronger. And then it's also standardized. I'm not forgetting that week on week. And it's something that is a landmark, as I'd call it, for my clients, where I'll never forget that. Like, pull myself down, brace into the midsection, and then breathing in as I take the weight down and breathing out as I blow the weight back up. So this all, the instability leads to poor recruitment, injuries, plateaus. And the plateaus come from that lack of standardization, where you don't know what you've done the week before or how you've done it, which is super fucking important. And here's the leg press as an example. So you'll see I'll come down, I'll pause at the bottom, I'll bring it straight back up. I'm not taking too long. Now, this is my first actual proper leg day back, but you'll see that there's a standard to all of these reps where they don't look any different. You might see me kind of shifting my foot around. That's kind of like a bad habit I have in general. Even if I'm doing dumbbells, I'll always kind of swing a dumbbell within my hands at the top of a movement. But that's just adjustment and making sure that things are even across the board. But the reps are slow. I'm not in a hurry. Again, I'm pausing at the top. I'm not taking too long I'm pausing at the bottom, and I'm not taking too long at the top, just so that I'm keeping tension there. And I will use this exact same form. Every set of this leg press that I do from now till next year will look like that. The only difference will be there's going to be more plates on it. But there's only going to be more plates on it when I'm ready for that. And I'm sure and certain that I've taken, so that's 2 plates there. I pushed up to 3, and what will happen is they're sets of 15. So I'll go for 4 plates and 5 plates. And the plates will go up until I can't get to 15 with that form. So once that happens, then I'm stuck at whatever plate that is, and I'm going to keep doing that and showing up for that same amount of plate. Like, let's say it's 6 plates. I'm doing 6 plates on that leg press every week until I can get 15 reps, and they look exactly like that video. That is proper progressive overload. And then you have pillar 2, which is structure. So to build a training week, basically, that's, if you're struggling with structure in your training, like you obviously don't know how to build a training week, and this is how we would do it. This is more of an advanced sense, or again, like I said, for naturals, but an advanced natural as well. 2 exposures per muscle per week. I'm of the belief, and now that would be, I'd be okay with, apart from legs. I think legs, if you can train them hard enough once, you don't need to train them again. Like, the classic thing to happen to people is that I have weak legs, so I train them twice a week. But then you watch them train legs twice a week, and they train them like a bitch twice a week. So you're just like, what's the fucking point in that? Like, I'd rather you balls out on 1 day a week and do it that way. Now, if you want to split quads and hams, different story, but just something to be mindful of, and it won't always suit everybody. Like, 2 leg days might suit certain people. A lot of people that crush them and take so much from their recovery that the rest of their training doesn't matter. But in an ideal sense, this is what you'd be looking for. And what's good for that is like a push-pull legs, and have a day off somewhere. I'd like to do 2 days on and a day off. So you do push-pull, rest. You could do legs, push-pull. Or, you could do a legs push and then rest for the weekend. And then that legs and then push, that Friday session can rotate. So it's push or pull or push or pull, or you could do arms, or you could do delts and arms. Like, especially in a push-pull split, like whatever gets left is usually delt arm-ish. So you could do that as well. 6 to 10 working sets per muscle. This is another one as well. a warm-up set or two on everything, but for the most part, you're looking for 3 working sets per movement. And obviously, in your first exercise, you're probably going to have a little few more warm-up sets than on your last exercise. But for the most part, your sweet spot is going to be 3 working sets, and that's where 2 warm-up sets. The third set then is basically the first of 3, and you're either going to take a working weight the same for those 3 sets or progress them up slowly and kind of beat your numbers there in those 3 sets. An exercise order, so compounds, dead machines, isolations. I actually run this backwards. So I'll always do an isolation, a compound, or something more stable. But usually a compound, and then I'll move into stuff that takes the stability out of it, and I can just worry about plugging and playing. So for example, and there is one here, but a pec fly, incline press, and then you're a cable crossover or something. And sequence, look at, like I said earlier, with like looking at my upper pecs, like look at your body, like what do you think is lacking? Or if you don't know, ask someone, like what would you work on if you were me? Ask ChatGPT, that'll fucking give you some answers. Like it's all there. And once you have an idea, then that builds your training. Then that's why I'm such a training programming nerd, because I like to look at a physique and go, what's going to miss in there? How are the different ways that we can kind of deliver tissue onto those areas and kind of round off the physique? And then the beauty of training is that eventually you get to a point where the things that you've built into strengths from weaknesses, they show other glaring weaknesses, and then the shift changes, and then you're constantly, it's chasing a dragon. You never really catch it, and in your exercise selection, not just off the point of what's lagging on your body, but they have to be stable. So you have to be able to be comfortable in the movement. It can't give you any issues. And if you can sort out any issues that it does give you, bin it and find something that's a bit more comfortable, because you're going to be running this for a long time. So if it's a thing that you have any kind of issues or bugaboos with it, get that shit fixed or change it. And again, like over this training, you might be surprised where you might run a certain exercise for so long because the alternate to it didn't work. But you might have built enough tissue with that one exercise that eventually you've actually allowed your body to jump into that next movement and have no issues. Not always the case, but it can happen. You have to have it repeatable. It has to be progressible, and it has to suit your body as well. Like high incline stuff won't suit me because I've got super fucking long arms and really rusty rotator cuffs. So I'll always go one notch up from flat, and that will be incline for me, and I can still kind of target that. But years back, I was caught in this kind of limbo where I had sore shoulders and I had shit upper pecs. But either way, I didn't have enough frame or tissue on my frame to allow me to do a proper lower incline. It had to be a higher one for me able to target the upper pecs. But now I've kind of built my physique in a way where I find it easier to engage with the upper pec at a lower incline, which means there's less issue on my shoulders, so on and so forth. Good versus bad exercise choices. Now, when I say bad, there's a continuum. Like there is no good or bad. Same with food, but bad for most. So these are just going to be your an easy pick. These are decent. These I'd look at. So good as hack squat, Smith incline, chest supported row, machine RDL, and cable lateral raises. One thing you'll notice about these, they're all in a machine. So there's no stability involved. There's no chance of fucking it up or popping something or wrecking something. And then we get on to the bad for most, behind the neck press, number 1. Actually, one of my favorite shoulder movements, but I'm doing them over 15 years, so I know exactly where I should be at with them. And again, if you're someone that has kind of janky rotator cuffs, you want to do an awful lot of stretching and warming up and rehabbing. And don't just, if your fucking first exercise is behind the neck press, you're asking for it, and that's on you. So just be mindful of that. Barbell RDLs for beginners, very technical movement. Hip hinges can be really tricky to kind of get the hang of, especially if you're someone that isn't really comfortable or super efficient in a squat. You're going to have a bad time with RDLs, and this is where it's helpful to have someone there that can actually physically PT you in person. Ego rows, so that's the classic male inclination of I'm going to put 100 kilos on this and look like a dog taking a shit, but I'll feel better about myself until I wake up tomorrow and realize I've fucking popped one of my fucking lumbar. Fancy influencer circuits, depending on who you follow, certain people do put out fancy circuits that actually are of use, but for the most part, it's clickbait shit. If you actually look through the weeds of what they're doing, like it's more just to kind of get, views than anything else. So just be mindful of that. And then chest days or any days with 12 exercises. Like that's another one as well. Like less is more. More is not more. That's just the way it goes, especially for something like chest. Good fucking God, 12 exercises. And that happens. That's a real example I've got from someone before. So you don't grow by changing movements, you grow by improving movements. So stimulus over variety, always, 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 always. It's the same with anything in this. Like, it's not about what kind of level of fancy you can bring to it. It's what level of mundanity can you deliver all the time. So what can you keep showing up for? What can you do consistently? I only had this conversation with a client this morning about breaking past the 95 kilo mark, and we hadn't really changed anything in her food the last 3 or 4 weeks, but like her scale weight was trending down. So, we're kind of looking at it, and people generally, when they start to kind of get somewhere and it starts to get stagnant a little bit, they kind of panic and go, oh fuck, I'll do more cardio or take more food off me. I'm like, no, like there's actually more to be said for sticking consistently to what you're doing, more so than changing it to kind of increase the intensity. Sometimes the intensity can come from being really fucking rigid and not moving off that spot with it and showing up for it every single day or every single week. So it's the same with training. Like, it's not about, I'll do this angle this week and this angle next week. Like, your angles are going to be built into your session already, and that's on you if you've not done that already. And it leads you to a place where you feel like on week 5, I have to put something new in here because X, Y, and Z is missing. Show up for the same shit all the time and like master those movements. That's what's going to get you progression way quicker than switching shit. And this is the perfect session structure, like I was talking. So this is like my push day. A push, for those that don't know, is chest, shoulders, triceps. And again, like, we're looking at 3 working sets on each of these. We're kind of answering to all of the angles. There's crossover here. Whenever you're using your pecs, you're using your shoulders and your triceps. Whenever you're using your shoulders, you're using triceps. So by the time we get to triceps, they're pretty fatigued. So we only have the one movement there. But a pec fly is to activate. So that's just to exhaust the muscle group before we get into the incline Smith. And just to make sure that we're maximizing recruitment, but also not getting underweight we have no business being under. The incline Smith gives us stability, gives us a standard, and gives us something that's rigid that we can kind of stick into, and we'll know we'll have landmarks on for every week. A chest press machine, again, just to change the angle, so to come from an incline down to something that's a little bit more flat-based. And also something that's kind of plate loaded as opposed to weight stacked. And again, just gives us more tension, gives us a little bit more of a resistance profile than we would have got from the previous 2. Into lateral raises, because we wouldn't press into a press, we'd be too exhausted. So a lateral raise will kind of activate the side delt there as well before we get into an overhead press, but also give us a break from pressing. Onto the overhead press machine, then again, we've exhausted laterals, so we're going to mitigate injury from not being underweight we have no business being under. But it's also going to give us something that's kind of smooth and standardized into, I can just sit in and plug and play. Like, once I know where my seating is, once I know my hands are right, I can just start pressing and it's going to work. And then tricep pushdowns to finish was just the classic, like probably the best way of loading and stretching a tricep at the end of a push day. So pillar 3 then is progression. So progression is better execution, more load, more reps, more control, more range, less form breakdown. And they're not and, it's and or. So like I said earlier, if I'm pressing 25 kilo dumbbells 1 week for 12, and the next week I go in and I get 25 kilos for 10, the week after that I do 22 and a half for 10. Like, I'm not going to beat myself up for that the diminishing or the decrease in weight over time. If I have more control, I've able to have more range, or I've had less form breakdown, or just in general better execution. Either all of these things or one of these things, I'm going to take a positive from some of them. Now, not to the point where I'm like, oh, that's great, I don't have anything to worry about now. The next time I go in, I'm still going to have it between my teeth that I want to get that 25 for 12 or whatever the next thing is. So just keep that in mind with that. Like, it's not always about the weight. Like, I think once you can kind of pull yourself away from what the weight is about, or it being all about the weight, things move a lot smoother for you, and there's a lot less pressure on yourself going into sessions, which is something that we can kind of build in for ourselves. I have personally in the past. So logbooks. You might not want to have a book, an actual physical book. Now, the CBK app, cheeky plug, has a logging system on it. So when you sign up, you get a training program, and there's a place for your weights, there's a place for your reps. And I don't put like rate of perceived exertion or reps in reserve in there because it's just too much. But there'll be a place for tempo as well. I give that to people. I won't get them to mark it down. And then that just takes one less thing off your guys' thoughts as a client. But sets and reps and notes on execution and stability are fucking without a doubt the most important things. Load as well, just so you have a kind of a reference point of where you're at. Tempo and RPE, I wouldn't get too worried about unless you're really advanced and kind of getting into that shit. I wouldn't worry about it too much. Like a logbook should give you the information from the week previous, but it also shouldn't distract you so much from your session. Like I've seen so many guys drop a fucking bar and spend the next 7 minutes writing shit. And I don't know what bleeding love letter they're giving themselves for next week, but like it's not like, what did you do? How many did you do it for? How did it feel? And then crack on. Don't get lost in the logbook. The goal isn't to beat the logbook at all costs. It's apply more accurate tension over time. So it's that same thing of like last week I got 25 kilos for 10. This week I'm gonna do 12 at all costs. Like I don't give a shit. Like, and that's how you get into bad form, no longer mitigating injury, and then your logbook did nothing but made you look like a prick, in a sense. So just be mindful of that as well. And then just a little one for my natties. It's the same rule applies. Like I think one thing that's going to probably be the bigger one here is food and recovery, which kind of link into the two. So, for a guy who's an assisted, 2 days on, a day off is good. You can kind of push that out as well and maybe get 5 or 6 days in a week if you wanted to. I wouldn't push past 5 really, unless I really, really know myself. Like for me, 4 is a sweet spot right now. And if I was to ever add a 5th, it would be like an active rest day, like an arms day, or maybe arms and abs and something that's very, very low impact, but also isn't going to take from the next session. Like I never want to do legs and back to back. I never want to do arms or biceps in particular before back. So these things you just need to be mindful of. For a natural as well, I'd be doing a push-pull leg. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, more time out of the gym, eating and recovering. And then in the time that you are in the gym, that you're kind of really, really putting everything into it that you can. Again, like there's no point in doing a training session a day when you could condense that into 3 and just give it your all, and probably get more for it. Because the more time we spend in the gym, and I mean days of the week, the less time we have not recovering or growing. So you don't grow inside the gym, you grow outside the gym. So the less time outside the gym, the less time growing is the best way to look at that. That'll be a hard one for a lot of people to wrap their head around, but it's a fact. And this is what I'm talking about, standardizing movements. The 6-month rule, this is originally a year rule, to be honest. But again, it can be a harrowing thought to hold on to an exercise for a year. And I don't think it's completely necessary. Like I think within about 6 months, you can kind of rotate something similar. So you can go from an incline Smith to an incline machine or an incline dumbbell. Like you can look at it that way. But pick your main lifts and run them for 6 to 12 months, not 6 to 8 weeks. So that thing of like, and that's me being generous to people. Like I know guys that rotate stuff for 2 or 3 weeks, and you're like, you're literally only kind of starting to settle in there, and you're changing the whole fucking thing. Like, and again, whatever about moving from an incline to an incline, like machine, and it can be the same machine, and just one has plates and one has a stack, but there can just be a different profile off it and a different feeling off it, and like that's enough. But like to go from like I was doing incline Smith machine press to now I'm doing a decline dumbbell press or a floor press is just fucking wild shit. So try and keep them in the same vein, and have a general theme to your exercise selection. The theme being based upon what it is you need to work on in your physique. And these are the training mistakes killing your progress. Oh, you fucker, you. And we kind of covered these in the structure over struggle as well. It's the same kind of thing, and it's just not standardizing things, and it's not having a structure. So chasing fatigue instead of stimulus. Like I'm not looking to be exhausted by the end of the session. I will be, but my goal isn't in there going, I'm going to the gym to get a good sweat on, and I want to be tired after this. Like that's the last thing on my mind. Like I know I'm going to be in buckets of sweat and bollocks by the end of this, but that's not the goal. The goal is to get as much blood and as much recruitment into the muscle group I'm training that day as possible. And what won't help that is a random plan. It's fucking random exercise selections and shit like that as well. So it's something that you have to be kind of super mindful of in that regard, that it's all about stimulus and execution more so than anything just at random or on the fly. Especially if you're a natural copying people that are on drugs, like you're not going to get the same feeling or the same return of investment from someone who is assisted, because there's more at play there hormonally, and they have more kind of to in their arsenal to kind of to benefit them. And then if you don't, like that's just the way that's going to be. Like it's not like, don't be expecting to go in and lift the same as a guy that's assisted. It's just not going to happen unless you're an absolute freak of nature. And even at that, like, is your body able to handle that load? Like, are you getting much out of that? Like, again, it's not always about getting the most weight on things or doing what someone else is doing. It's about what works for you and that you can kind of maintain and do consistently. And that same thing of just zero structure, ego loading, like it's not going to help you. It might feel like it does, but feeling and seeing are two different things there. So, and this is how I'd run a weekly framework. So like I said before, like I would usually do 2 days on and a day off. Like that won't always suit everybody, but I always like doing a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday off, and then a Friday or Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday off. And then that Wednesday and weekends can be active recovery. So 30 minutes of cardio, that's super low intensity, and maybe some abs, maybe a muscle group, like a bit of rear delts or a bit of arms if you really, really wanted to get something done. But again, I'd be just making, like, if you feel like you need to get something extra done, you've left something out of your exercise selection, so you need to look at that. But again, what you'll notice here is that legs are kind of far away from each other. I would have legs on a Monday and back on a Friday, and then everything else kind of goes in between those. But again, it's down to what suits them. I didn't want to just put down what I conventionally put down, because you'll see an awful lot of that online. So just a different way of kind of running things. And this is a take home for you guys for right now as well. So like, it's going to be a fucking a training rotation. So pick 8 to 10 movements you'll commit to, build a simple split. And like, you've just got one there, but like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday off, Thursday, Friday, weekend off. Very hard to fuck with that. Make it simple and make it easier to manage. And again, don't be afraid of not having too many exercises. And just worry more about what you're doing with the exercise you've given. If anyone follows Nick Walker, you'll have seen him on the lead up to the Olympia, where he's going, why do guys do 3 sets and leave? So if I do 3 sets of leg press and it feels really good, I'll just keep going until it doesn't feel as good anymore. Like, that's the kind of mindset you need to have when it comes to building tissue. Like, it's not about going in and doing, I have 3 sets of 12 and doing 3 sets of 12 and now I'm done. Like, if you do the third set and you're kind of going, I kind of want to do more of them, fucking do more of them. Like, even if it's not in the split or the way that you've laid it out, like, answer to that in your body. And the more you kind of do that and get more kind of instinctive of how you're training, the better knowledge you have and the better idea you have and the better conversations you have with your own body for building out your physique and your frame. Standardize your reps, log everything you do. It doesn't have to be absolutely everything. How much did you lift? How many times did you lift it? How did it feel when you lifted it? Something that, and quick notes, like, do your own, like, no one else is reading this shit, like, unless you have a coach and they need to understand, like, put a little bit more detail into it. But for the most part, it has to be referenceable to you. So the next week you have to look back and be able to understand it, not do this whole like formula of, what was this? And, it was 8 minutes ago I finished that set, now I'm fucking cold, and now the whole session's fucked anyway. So what's the fucking point in the logbook? So look at that. Record some lifts, whether it's for your Instagram, for yourself, for your coach. There's a lot to be said for how you think. And this still happens to me. I'm training 20 plus years at this stage. Certain sets I'll record and I'll think I was doing them down to the fucking wire, super slow, super controlled. And I look at it and I kind of go, like, where the fuck was all of that? Like, I didn't feel that. So there's a lot to be said for that. So do keep mindful of actually recording the lift. Even if you're not going to post it anywhere or send it to anyone or show anyone, like, it's good for yourself to be able to look back and kind of go, oh, I'm moving this way when I thought I was moving that way. Like, that's going to be an awful lot of your fixing there, and you won't have to hire anybody for that. And here's another one. If you're training hard and there's no progression of issue, so if you're already kind of doing all those things and it's not going anywhere, inside the CBK system as well, we would build the whole training structure for you, and your movements will be picked based on your physique and like your pictures, or your feedback in terms of what hurts or what's sore or what exercise do you stay away from, what do you enjoy. And then my own kind of tell of what I think your body needs in terms of gaps in your physique and weak points in your physique, and just remove the guesswork entirely. So you just have a plan that you follow. You don't need a logbook because it's on the app, and then you're just running that every week. And then we have that feedback every week. You have a weekly check-in where you're going to, check in with me and kind of tell me how things are going. Or we're going to bring it up, like, how's training going? Like, I know you're struggling with hack squats. How are you getting on with that? Do you have any form videos for me to critique? Okay, maybe next week take some and send them across and we'll look at it. And I do this for guys all the time. And it's, it can be awkward to record yourself in the gym, but, it's also awkward to not be able to do an exercise properly in the gym. So I think I'd rather take the first than the latter, so that people can look at me at some point and go, oh, you fixed that. That's fucking good. Respect to that. So always keep that in mind. And here's the final reminder. When you understand how to direct stimulus with intent, progress becomes predictable, not hopeful. So it's the same thing as a structure over struggle. Like, if there is no plan in place, there's nothing to predict, and if your structure isn't predictable, your physique isn't going to be predictable. And that means that you're going to have way more moments of feeling upset, feeling frustrated, feeling pissed off, and starting again on Monday, which is what we don't want. So if anyone ever needs help with their, and again, whatever about coaching, like I've said earlier, like, I'm a training nerd. So if you want something broke down or looked at, like, don't feel weird about just messaging me some shit and going, here, look, I'm really struggling with this exercise. Will you help me? I'm not going to fucking charge you for it. Like, this is genuinely what I'm passionate and love to do. So I'd be more than happy with that. I actually only helped someone this morning who messaged me about getting in a hole about training. And I just sent them back like a little structure they can follow for this week and just fucking crack on. Like, that's, I'm not looking for you to sign up. I'm not in this for the money. I'm in it for the love. So that is all from today. So that's the second series of the webinar series, the educational webinar. Obviously, these go onto YouTube. So any likes and shares are super appreciated. Any comments as well of support or questions are also very welcome. If you go to the description of my channel, you'll see I have a school community group where I have lessons and modules that go in there every week. They haven't been every week for the last few weeks, so I'm just a little bit busy wrapping up shows and shit. But from this week on, I'm going to be adding on a new lesson or a new module with full lessons involved into that as well. That's completely free. Get on there and engage in the community. I think we have about 20 of us in there. You can also find me on Instagram, cav_CBK or CBK_elite coaching. I put up a lot of content, form fixes. A lot of my carousels are about that. We have a Black Friday drop coming in 6 days. It's super teasy, and I'm not saying shit about it, so you can go on there and you can kind of figure it out, unless it's obviously you're watching this well past that, in which case you missed the boat and just tune in for the next one. But yeah, all of the support is appreciated. I hope you guys enjoyed this and got something out of it. And yeah, I'll catch us next Tuesday for the next one.